Let's come back here in Joburg now, where the ANC Youth League has new elected leaders for the first time in 8 years. Colin Malachi was elected unopposed as president. Phumzile Mgcina will be the league's first female deputy president. We get the latest now from eNCA's Moloko Moloto, who has been following the story and giving us coverage from the Nasrec Expo Center back in our studios right now. When we talk about Moloko this week, obviously it has been off just for young people. They're already making bold statements. I was chatting to Lukhona much earlier, and he spells that the radical ideologies that they have, it almost sounds like they are borrowing from the EFF. What was your assessment during the conference this weekend?
Well, obviously, following that conference that took place over the weekend, it was delayed by various issues, people complaining about processes, but ultimately it concluded parts of the conference.
Sure.
For instance, the election of the top six, and only last night until the early hours of this morning, they were still electing the additional 20 members of the National Executive Committee. So the other business of Congress, for instance, the discussions, detailed discussions of policy, was really not discussed. They didn't have such, and as a result, they have decided that they are going to call another hybrid sitting of this meeting, continuation of this conference, to discuss policies. And this afternoon, the new leaders of the ANC Youth League, the top six, called a media briefing. But first, it was addressed by the steering committee of the ANC that was overseeing that Congress, as well as the elections agency that announced the 20 members or additional members. And of course, we then heard from the young leaders. Yes, you obviously have had a break of about 8 years. Sure. Where the ANC Youth League voice was muted. And suddenly with these new ones, you get a sense that the young lions have suddenly found their roar. And of course, you will always refer back to Julius Malema. He was one of the vocal Youth League leaders when he was still the president, but also even Julius himself. Others said that he was emulating Fikile Mbalula, who was Youth League president at the time, and even Fikile and others, the likes of Malusi Gigaba and Lulu Johnson, who were there before him. There were always people who were saying they were trying to emulate Peter Mokaba. I guess it's inevitable that you will always have leaders of the ANC Youth League wanting to assert their presence. And maybe let's listen to Colin Malachi, the newly elected president of the ANC Youth League, really laying down the gauntlet at the leaders of the ANC, saying that it's about time they create space in parliament and in the provincial legislatures for young people.
The days of exploitation, the days of young people moved out of corridors of power are over. We're going to this conference, we're going to elections, we're very clear. We're not going to accept any less than 50% of young people in parliament and legislature. Parliament is not a retirement village. We're going to use the 50% that of the older will remain, we'll use them for wisdom. But we don't need to have 80% of them in parliament. If it means we get to 70, we'll be very happy. But we're not saying that we're cleaning them out, but we're saying that majority must be us because the future belongs to us. You can't say we're planning an agenda 2050, but that agenda is planned by somebody 70 years. You will not be there to account for all of those issues. We need to take responsibility of our own future. And this leadership is not apologetic about that. It's going to happen. The executive is going to be us. And everything that has to do with the power of this country, young people will be in the forefront of driving that agenda. And that is, we're going to be the voice to make sure we represent that interest. Thank you very much.
And of course, the radical demeanor of an ANC Youth League leader has to be taken into account. But they've spoken very widely about ill discipline and making sure that the line is very thick. And there's a different, there's a distinction between, yes, you've got ideologies, but if you're ill disciplined, you will be dealt with. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So coming into this weekend's conference, we saw the ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula firing a salvo, essentially suspending and removing the convener of the National Youth Task Team that was there, Xolanqola, who He's accused of presiding over a PEC or Provincial Congress of the ANC Youth League that elected a PEC in the Eastern Cape province. And for that, he was removed. Now, some people are saying that that has sent, or it was intended to send, a chilling message to young people that you either toe the line or you would be removed. Now, we had Mbalula himself, even when he was opening that Congress, talking decisively that the ANC, with him as the SG, is not going to tolerate indiscipline. It's not going to tolerate what he calls anarchy. But young people are known to be forthright in expressing their views. And the question is, are these ones going to toe the line? Has that message filtered to say that be decisive, say whatever you want, be vibrant, the party president, be vibrant, create and come up with ideas. But are they going to do that knowing that they can be fired? We know already Julius Malema was fired from the ANC Youth League and from the ANC. And Colin Malachi is saying that it's a lie to suggest that Julius Malema was fired for holding a different policy view. He says Julius Malema was fired because he wanted to create a cult within the ANC Youth League. He violated the constitution of the ANC and of the Youth League. And they argue that they are going to have to confine themselves to the ANC policies and culture. Maybe let's listen to Colin Malachi as he was really laying into Julius Malema there.
Malema was fired for economic freedom. Not true. It's a lie. It's a lie. That must be clarified. He was fired for ill discipline. He was fired for contravening the constitution of the ANC and the Youth League. He wanted to create a Youth League to be a cult organization that belongs to him, like the EFF. Then the EFF there, no matter how educated you are, you can't even speak. Educated doctors, they run around with water everywhere. Now here in the ANC, you are allowed to bring your views. That's why in the ANC we have got policy conferences, we have got NGCs, we have got meetings, platforms, we have got BGMs. Everyone, we even went further during the local government elections to open up our candidacy to communities. That is the ANC, it's not a cult organization. That's why everyone who wants to form, who behave like cult, we expel them in the ANC. When they try to form their own organization, people move away from them. People like Julius is popular on Twitter. If we can do a Twitter vote, according to Twitter, Julius will be the president of the country today.
Well, look, there's a lot that happened at the weekend, but obviously we need to find what the way forward is. What was your assessment?
Well, I think these young ones will try to make their presence felt, and not only through weird or radical views that they would be expressing publicly. They have a responsibility to draft a program of action. They acknowledge that if young people in their majority are jobless, don't expect them to vote for the ANC. So they are going to be continuing with their conference by holding those hybrid meetings to discuss policies, and they will say afterwards, in the coming weeks, they will now declare their pronouncements, their policies to say this is our way forward, and then they will draft a program of action that they believe the ANC will adopt to possibly get the majority of young people out of the social morass that they find themselves in.
Moloko Moloto, always a pleasure chatting to you. Thank you so much for unpacking that for us.